Mill and CG Consult, Michaela's computer. Welcome everybody, welcome to Community Environment Board. You may notice we've got new procedures now. We're not broadcasting, but we are recording, and the recording of the meeting will be available tomorrow online. That's correct. Lovely. Okay, thank you. Evacuation procedures, we haven't got anybody from the public here. So just to say, any emergency, go out through one of the doors, wait in the Walcott car park until Kat tells you that you can leave. Please don't disappear. Thank you. Apologies for absence. So we've got for you today, Councillor Fowler is substituted by Councillor Bates, Councillor Jarvis by Councillor Clues, Councillor Smith by Councillor Davey, and Councillor Reary by Councillor Osborne. So welcome to all those who aren't usually with us at Community Environment Board, and I hope you enjoy it. It's a good meeting. So thank you. Have I got any peculiar or non-peculiar interest from anyone? Okay, thank you. We've got no public participation, but there is something I would like to say just before we start. You might notice that normally in our meetings we have the Leisure Service Improvement Plan on the agenda. It's not on the agenda today. And the reason for that is, whilst it's been something that we've been used to seeing over the years and it's been useful in its own way, there are other ways to evaluate performance of leisure centres. There are industrial standards which we are going to start moving towards, because we are, as you know, going out looking for a new leisure operator. And in the light of that, we want to have a framework where we can manage the performance of the operator against KPIs. And so we will be, I've talked to Mike about this, we'll be developing a set of indicators that are on the national standard that we can then roll forward to our new leisure operator. So what's going to happen is that the member focus group, if you remember the 4 people that are in the focus group, in November they will have a meeting, and this is part of the meeting. The new indicators will go there for discussion, then they'll come back obviously to Community and Environment Board for approval after that. So that's why they're not on the agenda today. Right, okay. So any questions, ask Mike, but no, I think we all understand where we are with that. Thank you. So if we could move on to minutes of the last meeting. Are there any questions or comments? Shall we go through them quickly, page by page? So first page, second page, or third page? No? So can I have a proposer to accept those minutes? Thank you, Byron. Seconded by Andy Jones. Thank you very much. Those in favour? Right, thank you very much. I'll sign those at the end. Just although there's been nothing from the floor on this, there are a few things I would like to say, because there's nothing on our agenda today that follows forward what we agreed last time, but there's been an awful lot going on in the background, so I just wanted to bring everybody up to date about what's happening. So for that focus group, Kath and Mike have identified sites which have recently built leisure centres that may be similar to what we want, and within our price range, hopefully, and they're going to organise visits so that we just get an expectation of what's available for what price. So that's happening over the next few weeks. The site investigation at Polesworth is underway, and so far so good, but we've got a few more things to look into, but that's going ahead. We're going out for expressions of interest for the leisure operator, and we're looking at the market for design and build, what sort of contracts have people done and done them recently, etc. And you might know that we've got an extra Community and Environment Board on the 27th of November. Looking at Kathy, who's got the date wrong. Yeah, 27th of November. And the week before that, on the 20th, we have an open session for all councillors who want to just informally discuss what's happening with leisure services. It's similar to what we did last time. So to make sure those dates are in your diary. Okay, everybody happy with that? So there's a lot going on in the background, but there's nothing actually on the papers today. It's just to let you know. Oh, yes, Emma.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify for those that didn't realise this, or whether it was just me. A group of us discussed that having only 4 people. Sorry, I'm trying
Right,
to
yeah.
face you and also speaking mic. Only having 4 people on that select group. I did raise the issue that we were potentially not going to have a lot of expertise in the room, but then Kath kind of clarified for me that that was the point of having the workshop before the next board meeting and so on, so that all councillors have got the ability to raise their points, which I felt that was useful to say in case everybody had assumed what I'd assumed, which was wrong. So obviously the 4 of us, Byram, myself, Major and Margaret, I think, just the 4 of us, isn't it? Yeah. We'll be the ones that are just going to sort of write down the nitty gritties, otherwise it gets a bit too big. But I think it's important to say that everyone has got a say. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for pointing that out. Absolutely. It's just that there are a few things we want to discuss. We can't keep having senior boards added on. We've got a couple of special ones, so they're just as sounding boards, and obviously you can relay them back to your groups and things. But when we've got important decisions coming up at senior board, as we've got in November, which is going to affect the whole council, because obviously we're all involved in this. We'll all be borrowing money, not just senior board. Then we have a special session to involve everybody, so that everybody gets to know and can put their points forward. So thank you for that. It's brilliant. Okay, so we're moving on to the first agenda item, which is item 6 actually, on the fly tipping update. And I would like to introduce a new member of our team, Mr. Andy Timmins, who is our Community Enforcement Officer. So we've got some real muscle now behind trying to sort things out, whether it's dog mess or fly tipping or whatever else. And Andy's got he's got a presentation for us. And if it's okay with you, Andy, if you can take questions as you go along. So, just put your hand up if there's something that's said that you want to clarify or add questions to. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. My name's Andy Timmins. As Chair said, the newly appointed Environmental Crime Officer, appointed in August. Just getting my feet under the table, just getting used to what the role actually entails. Got a few slides, and what it is, it's a snapshot really of what my role will bring to the table and what we hope to move forward and get some results in. So my role primarily is investigating the illegal dumping of waste. As the Chair mentioned, there's obviously other aspects, whether it's fly posting, littering, dog fouling. Primarily, it will be illegal dumping of waste. I'll fly through these because there's a reflection on a few other pictures further down the line. So going into enforcing environmental regs and the law, looking at how we reduce the crime, and also how do we go about raising awareness and educating the public, both positively and negatively, i.e. educating them with good news results, but also educating them around do's and don'ts to try and reduce the dumping of waste in our borough. Well, the impact affects everybody, doesn't it? It affects us all in here, affects all the taxpayers, affects everybody in the borough and people travelling through. And these are a few of the examples in which that occurs: the environmental degradation of the area, destruction of habitat, probably a few points here you wouldn't normally associate with waste, but is there: river pollution, our health, public health, the cost, of course, and the trust and confidence of the taxpayer, the members of the public. This is a very little arrow on this screen. There we go. I don't want to spoil it too early with a picture of myself there. I thought this was quite poignant, really. A quote actually by Walt Disney. The way to get started is to quit talking about it and begin doing. And what that really means is get out of the chair and actually do something more physical. I have to say, a lot of it is sat in the chair, investigation-wise. But the way I interpret that there's a bit more to investigating crime than sat at a desk and obviously emailing people and everything else. It's actually getting out on site and first-hand gathering evidence and visiting said offenders on their doorstep, which I've already begun to do, much to their surprise. I didn't realise it'd be quite that big when I was when I was choosing these slides. This was Hurley Lane a couple of weeks ago now. Hurley Lane been subject to a number of fly tipping events. The reason why I picked this particular one for the picture, that went out on social media, got a lot of likes, a few positive comments as well. Now, in terms of my role, out of about 5 fly tipping events down Hurley Lane, it's probably the only one that I've actually got some evidence from. So we do get obviously a lot of calls to service around fly tipping. I have to choose the ones obviously I'm going out to. Okay. Now, a lot of the reports that come in may say there's a fridge being dumped or there's some items being dumped, and there'd be very little opportunity to seize evidence from the scene. And that's from local knowledge, i.e. we know there's going to be no witnesses because it's a very rural location. Very doubtful there's any form of CCTV at the location. And so you have to weigh up which ones are actually going to be worthy of going out on site. Hurley Lane itself was worthy because it's quite a hot spot. It's where a lot of fly tips occur. So I've been up and down that road a number of times, putting signs up on the gates, the fly tipping signs we've got. Dual effect with the fly tipping signs, it's highlighting to members of the public that were there, were visible, putting the signs up. But also, clearly, it was becoming a hotspot to the offenders, and we wanted to obviously get them to see that things were changing. And by putting signs up, sometimes does trigger in their mind, well, if a sign says the CCTV and we're watching you, are they? Or they don't know. So they move on. That's the idea. This particular one here, out of all that retail and commercial waste, there was, in amongst that, there was a few letters with letterheads on, which I was able to seize, and they've been invited in for an interview. We'll see how that goes. This is pretty much what I've just been alluring to. Target hardening an area. This is Coleshill Way, this particular tip here, by Woodland Cemetery. Again, these are the signs that go up. So whenever I visit, I like to leave a sign behind, if nothing else. It's a different picture down here. That's Hurley Lane. It's one of the signs that have gone up. And of course, we're using in different areas trail cams to capture evidence. No, I'm flying through this. If there's any questions, please ask. So in terms of raising trust and confidence, which I mentioned a bit earlier in the presentation, trust and confidence through social media. This was Wood Lane in Devitt's Green, Annesley, typical fly tip there, but it was burnt. We don't know why. We don't know whether, don't think so, but don't know whether the offender would travel back to burn all of the fly tip or whether it was just somebody passing. It's a bit of a question, really, a bit of a question mark. However, it didn't all burn. And going through it again, found evidence of names and addresses, which are seized. And again, they'll be invited in for questioning. Good positive outlook from that as well. A lot of good response from local members of the community. And that's what we want to, moving forward, we want to see more of. And obviously with the results, you know, start getting some positive results out there as well. I've already started doing this, reaching out to our neighbouring local authorities. One, I think we discussed earlier, a lot of the offenders that I've noticed. Sorry, hello.
Sorry, I was like,
Oh,
I was looking at that Tamworth, the way the M goes into the W. I like that.
oh,
That's what I was just looking at. For a minute.
Yeah.
Just back onto social media. Margaret shared with us, not the last scene, I think it was the one before, was it, Margaret, about what actually happens to our bulky waste with the bulky waste collection, because I wasn't aware of what actually happened with it.
The Emmaus project, do you know it yet? May not. We have a system in North Warwickshire where we will pick up people's bulky waste, settees.
yes,
Yeah.
for a price, yeah, fixed price, yeah.
So I shared it on my social media in my community groups, and people didn't know about it.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, you know, like, I would actually be doing some good by using that £35, is it £35? Something
Yeah,
like that, isn't it? That service, and you're actually doing good. So people think they're actually doing something really good just by getting their waste collected. And that was a really important. Hartshill's having quite a lot of fly tipping at the moment. It's a little bit of a victim. And it was quite nice for the residents to know that they could do something good out of something bad, bulky waste, instead of ditching it, get it collected, and it makes people feel good about themselves. So I think that really needs pushing on social media, because my residents nobody knew about it. It was really good. So I posted on our community groups and my own councillor's Facebook page, and it had a really, really good response. So,
No, that's fantastic. It can be a double-edged sword, social media, sometimes, depending what it is you're reporting on. But on the whole, it's a big plus, it's a big positive. Feeding back, isn't it? It's communication, feeding back to the public what we're doing. So a lot of our offenders, from what in the short time I've been working here, I've seen a lot of the offenders are rarely North Warwickshire members of the public. They're coming in from Coventry, coming in from Birmingham, depositing the waste. One of the cases I'm working on at the moment, I've not long been speaking to Birmingham City Council with regards to it. Now, that was a case in the Green in Freesley, where the lovely, nice cul-de-sac, and there was a great big lump of waste in the middle of the green there. Abundant with evidence, which is great. Normally I'm having to dig through the waste to find some, but it was in abundance, documentation, personal effects. Yeah, there's quite a bit, and it was down to property in Shard End, which, going back to the Walt Disney quote, I visited, knocked on the door, and the gentleman there lives on his own, elderly chap, quite surprised that all his personal documents and effects ended up on the green in North Warwickshire. Even having checked the waste carrier to find out he was licensed, so he expected it to be dealt with responsibly. Doing a bit further digging, investigation into that, another witness come forward who had found some of his personal effects outside her house in Birmingham. So the person, as it turned out with the timeline, had first dumped all of his waste, of which was quite a large load in a transit van, dumped it originally in Shard End, and then when he got found out, because he did get found out, and he was spoken to by some of the locals in Shard End, he refilled the van and dutifully come on to North Warwickshire, where it's ended up on the green in Freesley. So although I'll be leading that particular investigation, I'm sure it'll be a joint effort between ourselves and the Birmingham City Authority as well. So that's what that slide was about. It's important to build those relationships. Again, apologies for the image. This was when I was working in the constabulary as a drone pilot. It's one of the funding considered. Oh, sorry, I'm missing these hands. I'm really sorry.
The first picture you showed with the large amount,
Yes.
do you believe that was from, because obviously there's quite a lot there,
Yeah.
do you think that is dumped by one
Yes,
lot of people, or do you think it's multiple?
it was one.
No. They must have been there quite some time dumping all that.
So I've been there for ages getting rid of all
So,
that.
or is it that people see stuff's already dumped, so then it encourages others to come and do that?
That can happen. That
Yeah.
certainly can happen. On that particular occasion, it was all the same kind of waste. You could see it was from the same origin, and it would have all been dumped at once. You'd be surprised what 2 or 3 people can do in terms of speed. You'd be surprised how quick they can get rid of that out the van. Doors open. Sometimes they don't even stop. They'll slow down, and there'll be people in the back just hoofing it out the back as it's still moving.
Well, I've seen somebody dumping a load of rubbish and stop the car. My husband, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm the councillor. And but they soon got back in the car and like started driving off. But he said to me, "What would you have done if they'd have come to the car?" I don't know.
Well, I'll take a tip from that then.
Yeah.
It's a good result. Going back to that tip.
Got one behind you.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. First, I was interested in your signs. So as local councillors, we know where we've got the problem, and our parish councils know where we've got the problem. So if we know where there's a problem, would we be able to get in touch with you and say, could you put a sign up here?
Indeed, absolutely, yes.
Because obviously we're the ones that we know where we've got, I know where
Absolutely.
we've got problems in Manchester and Hampstead. And the other one, as to identifying and getting cases out there. I don't know if it's just me, but I've been a councillor for 9 years. I think we've got a bit despondent over the years because we never seem to hear many good cases.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to hear them, not just to the C&E board, but if the case is in my area or your area, it would be nice to hear a good news story so we can pass that on and say, actually, we are doing something about it. And the other one is just a thank you, because I've been waiting for dog signs since July and through sending a message to Kath going to you. Thank you very much for going up Ridge Lane and
Pleasure.
sorting the problem for me.
Pleasure. No, you're absolutely right. Two-way communication is a really significant thing. But, to our own people as well as members of the public, I had an on-site meeting with our streetscape colleagues who also collect evidence for us. And they said themselves when I was having a conversation with them that they give us these evidence and they rarely hear the results. And the thing is that it's quite indicative of any agency, any force. We're never very good at feeding down the line good news. We forget that bit. And obviously that's something we look to progress. This is the last one, I think. But before we move on very quickly, one of the tactics moving forward we're going to look at is, and I wanted your understanding around it and your thoughts, is making crime scenes of certain fly tips. Now, the reason why I say what your thoughts are is because it would mean that the fly tip would be in place for maybe 2 or 3 days for it to take effect, and we all want fly tips to be removed ASAP, but at the same time, we need to look at tactics to reduce and to capture offenders. And one of the tactics we're looking at, as I say, is if you remember the public driving past a fly tip, like a fly tip of waste, we've all got our thoughts. We all know what those thoughts are going to be running through your mind as you drive past. And then a few days later, it's gone, and it's the end of that. And then maybe a week or 2 later, somebody else has deposited something there. And you get a really bad feeling about it. So I'm looking to change that feeling that people get. Not every fly tip, we won't be able to do it to every fly tip, but some of the more significant ones, cone it off and environmental crime tape it off. That's twofold. So it looks like a police crime scene for a start off, and that will trigger a couple of responses in your mind. For the passing motorist, they're going to think, wow, that's been investigated, that's been looked at. It's not just being picked up and at taxpayers' expense binned. Somebody's actually gone out and they're investigating it. The other side of the coin is offenders are going to see the same actions around it. Offenders are going to begin to see that it isn't just a dumping ground and it isn't just going to be removed with little recourse. There's something has changed. And that's the feel I want to bring in. What your thoughts are on that?
Good, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, anything that brings uncertainty to people who were considering that type of thing, if they're seeing people taping it off, they're in high vis, they're seeing people looking through the bags and putting things in little evidence bags, that would definitely make me think twice about what I was doing, because you realise that they are really taking this seriously. It's not just being chucked on the back of a streetscape wagon, and that's the last anybody's going to know about that. So anything that sort of promotes that sort of thing, I think has got to be a good idea. And I think picking our particular cases and battles is the way forward, not just, like you say, doing it to everything, but waiting until, with your experience, you get a sense of this is the right one to treat in that manner is a good way forward. I think the public would back that. And anything that tries to fight this sort of crime that costs everybody, the taxpayer, a load of money to clean up in the end, it's got to be worth it. We've got to at least try these techniques.
Yeah, thanks. I've got Debbie, then Katie, then Michaela.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I know that we've got certain places that is people keep putting rubbish in the same place, and then the magic fairy comes along and it's all gone. It's a bit like my sink at home when the kids are there. Magic fairy comes in, everything's cleaned up. So I think having something there that shows that it's not just going to be picked up and taken away, and you know they can just keep dumping in the same place. I think it'd be good as a deterrent for stopping the repeat offenders that keep dumping it in the same places. So I think it's a great idea.
Katie.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say pretty much the same. When you see like some scary hench bloke in a high vis and his aviators taking off, it sends out a message, doesn't it? Because the problem that we've got, one of my first ever complaints when I was a councillor, as a councillor, we deal with dog poo constantly. In my ward, I've got 3 schools in a sort of 400-metre radius, and it's like people take their dogs there just to mess all over the place and then tread it into all the schools. The dog poo spray, you're going to get a fine, signs are on the floor, and there was a dog poo on top of it. So people are not frightened of it anymore. People are not scared that if they get caught, they know that everybody's got Ring doorbells, they might get caught with their dog messing on the pavement, but they're not frightened of it. So if you put your scary posters up with the eyes looking like, you know, we are watching you, that again, people are being desensitised to it because there's no news. It was like we were saying last time, what are our numbers for prosecutions? You know, we need to be publicising these things. You need to make people frightened to do it and publicise the positive way that you can get rid of your waste. Doing something like this is backing up what you're saying. Yeah. And that again comes with publicising prosecutions and really making a big, massive deal out of them. Like, get everybody on social media saying, look what we've done, look at this, it's horrendous. And all standing together because it's something I can guarantee every single councillor has had to deal with. Because it is, especially in our rural communities, it is horrendous. I love it, I think it's great.
Be on social media when they put yellow tape up.
So, I know. There's a murder scene. There's a murder scene on Woodford Lane. It looks like Tiffin.
Michaela, I want to bring Millen in a minute on the communication.
I was just going to follow on from what been said before, but I was going to say, if you've got a case in a particular ward and you've taped it off, and if you could contact the local councillors, then we could share it on our pages and the news, newsletters and things, and say, look what's happened, you know, it's been investigated, and you know the information. But yeah, okay. I know it's pretty much the same what's been said.
That's good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you. Willem, do you want to talk about what's happening with the communications? I know we're interrupting your presentation, but I think it's timely. Thank you.
Yes. So, as in the report, there's.
Willem, could you use the microphone?
Oh, sorry. So in the report, there's some mention of some DEFRA grant money that we won. So 28,000 and about £29,000 of it is an awareness campaign. So we're going to link up with our social media, everything, and some leaflets. So every single person within, every resident within North Warwickshire is going to get a leaflet through their door, which will give them advice on the bulky waste or who to go to. It'll give them advice on how to check waste carrier license. It'll give them a layout. This is how much we spend as a local authority. This is what we're trying to do. This is who to contact. This is how we do things. So every single resident is going to get that, every single household, and also every business will. So they'll get a leaflet on, as a business, this is what you're meant to do. These are the checks you're meant to do. So it's a big awareness campaign that we're working on. That will link in with our social media, and then essentially a policy will kind of be created on how we give back information to people that are obviously councillors, of course, but also residents who've reported something to us, how we kind of work and give that information back to say, this is what we've been doing in the case. Because sometimes a lot of work goes into a case and nothing might come out of it, but it's also feeding that back, going, yeah, we contacted 10 people, we did this, witnesses, visits, and that's not kind of relayed back, and that's something that we're working on. So that's where that 28,900 is going to be spent. The £5,658 was initially for cameras, and I think we brought it into previous reports that we would get AI cameras. We've been using those cameras, and we're not getting the results that we hoped with those cameras because of just the nature of when fly tips happen. It's at night, it's quite dark, the angling of the cameras, and there's a lot of work that's gone into it, but we're not getting the results that we wanted from there. So I've spoken to DEFRA last week, and essentially asked if we can change it to drones. So Addy used to fly a drone in his previous role, and we're looking into trying to focus that money onto a drone so that we can target areas. And it's not just like communal awareness that will give us, so that social media post to say a drone's gone up, this is what we're looking at, but also looking at burying waste, and because that happens a lot within our area, and burning of waste. So like those incidences, we can go and raise that, and yeah, so that would be what that second amount is going to do. We've not had that approved yet by DEFRA, but they've agreed to listen to our proposal on it to change that slightly. So yeah, there is a lot of work going on to it, but it will be hopefully in the next few months that we can kind of get that rolled out, especially the leaflets up for Christmas time, hopefully January, where there's a lot of flighting in that kind of, that the numbers kind of increase around that time.
Thanks very much. And Andy, I know you're experienced in drone piloting, is that what you call it? Anyway, if you want to say a little bit about what your experience is and how you think it might impact on our situation, that would be great.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, utilising the drone in terms of the business that we'd be involved in. Sorry.
That's all right. Carry on for a minute. You were on about drones, so I want you to know about the ANPR.
Oh, right, okay. Shall I do the drones first? Do you want to know that? The red herring. Yeah, in terms of, ultimately, they give you a bird's eye view of what you're looking at, which can totally open up an investigation. If you can imagine taking images as we normally do from the ground level, taking an image of even quite a large waste site, if you're taking it to court and you're looking at the impact for the magistrate or the judge to look at, you can't beat an aerial image where it's showing the surrounding countryside, the rivers, the trees, the fields, and somebody's dropped a ton of waste in a field and you're looking to hold them to account. That's one good aspect of why you would use a drone. Otherwise, intel, we'll get a report, as Millen indicated, on burial sites of waste, especially land that you wouldn't otherwise be able to gain access to. Nobody really owns the air other than the CIA, which is what regulates drone flights. So we could send the drone up in that capacity and see what we're dealing with, whether we need a warrant or otherwise. So it's basically preempting an investigation where maybe you haven't got anything in the first instance without a drone. So a lot of the drone work will be used in that capacity, really, and not so much in finding offenders because they're going to be in the air for about 40 minutes at a time. So it's mainly for gathering intelligence and building cases.
Thank you. Nigel?
Well, my question was that to Mill and yourself is these ANPR goon cameras, which don't seem to be working very well, are they trail cameras? Or are they the like ones that stood for lampposts, etc.?
I put ANPR on there simply as something alongside drones. I mean, that wouldn't be yet, but something that we could look at in the future to use. That automatic number plate recognition.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So it's not the trail cameras. That they would be actual.
Would not trail cams be far more beneficial? Pardon? No, but these days they run for 24 hours, and they're not noticeable.
Yeah, trail cams have got their positives and obviously they've got their weaknesses as well. They've got both, haven't they? For a start off, you really are looking to place them not as a covert asset.
Why not as a covert asset? Well, people are dumping stuff as a
depends on the proportionality of the investigation as whether a ripper would be something we'd be looking at. But quite often we're putting signs out at these hotspot locations saying we are watching you. So that kind of covers the aspect of the fact we are watching you. So we're not being coy about it.
No, didn't think that for a minute.
And yeah, I mean, we have got trial cams out as we speak now, and we're in a position now where they're aiding us better than they did a few months ago because we've got a lot more memory in, where before we was having to go out every 48 hours. So they're not a bad thing, especially as you say that they're self-powered, so they can be located in far more.
I use the word fit and forget, but I don't mean forget.
No, yeah, but you're right. In essence,
and you can go back. These days, they only work usually on if there's something passes plaster.
Yeah.
So if it's set in the right place,
yeah,
so we know it wouldn't be triggering all the time.
No, I mean, in terms of ANPR, that which you obviously know what you're talking about there. So it's a completely different asset. I've been, for example, I've put a data protection form in for the local police to give me an analysis on a vehicle that I believe was committing fly tipping. So that's where ANPR comes in, like a trail cam can't. It will tell you on a map where they've been at a given time.
Mike, I know Willem wants to come in, but yeah.
Yeah, I know we've had a few comments on this now, Chair, so I'll keep it brief. Yeah, I think when we use the words fly tipping and things like that, people have to remember that this is environmental crime. It's against the crime. It's a crime act. Not that I'm criticising any of us for using fly tipping, but if we need to get it out to the public that they're breaking the law, it's against the Environmental Crime Act. And usually find that people who break these sort of perceived smaller laws, that there's other crimes and different things attached to it anyway. So we could get the police backing or some of the police attending just occasionally, even if we could get that. I know the resources are stretched, but you usually find that it may lead to other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Andy. Thank you very much. I'm going to bring Millen in and then I'll open it up to any general questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Chair. So there's just two points. It was about the covert cameras, and that is the conversation that we're having with different local authorities, our neighbouring authorities our neighbouring authorities in the area to see what they do. We've had conversations with Birmingham to see whether they've got any. They currently don't, but it's also having a conversation with our legal team to see if that's something that we can implement. So those are the conversations we're having, because we know how effective it would be if, there's signage everywhere, like we said before, that they'll just go down the road. There isn't a sign to fight it. So that's something we're also considering. Some good news stories. We issued out 2 fixed penalty notices a couple of weeks ago. One was paid today. I got a phone call to say one had been paid. And that was a fly tip that was done on private land. So a farmer that would have had to get that cleared and cover the cost of that but we've had, that's been paid, and that was somebody from Leicester that had applied it in our area. So that was just household waste, that was cardboard boxes, a bunch of waste that was dumped. So those are two good news stories, and hopefully the other person will pay. And if they don't, then we'll take that to legal for recommended prosecution, and then legal will make a decision on that. And then there's another one with legal to review for a fixed penalty notice as well. And then, like Andy mentioned earlier, there's a few interviews and cautions we've already booked in for the coming weeks. So there's a lot of work kind of amping up now. Now that Andy's in role, and we've got a bit more time resource.
Thank you very much. I think we all welcome this new focus and new energy on this, and somebody with the experience of the police force, I'm sure, will be very helpful in this role. So, are there any other final comments? Yeah, Bernadette.
Do you liaise with any of the community litter picking groups? The volunteer ones?
I haven't so far.
There's
No.
one in Grendon, and he's on a mission, isn't he, Bradley, to clean Grendon up, and he's even encroached, thankfully, into Baddesley, where we are. So he would be quite useful
Bags and bags of stuff.
to liaise with. I think he spends every weekend with his volunteers litter picking along the A5 and down the lanes and everything. So he would probably be quite a useful person to speak to know where
Absolutely.
the regular dumping grounds are.
Yeah,
But I think
absolutely.
Andy's got a regular on
Lower
Lower House Lane as well.
Yeah.
So
I think it'd be really useful there's a lot of litter picking groups in our different wards, there's one in Oxford as well, and it would be really useful to give them advice on what to do when they come across a fly tip, because sometimes they just pick it up if it's small, but they need some advice really, and if we could add that to our communication list, that would be really good to say, this is what you do if you come across a fly tip. Major, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I guess you're looking at two types of fly tippers. One who take the chance, and serial fly tippers who go around and do this as a job sort of thing.
Yeah.
And would you liaise with the neighbouring authorities, with your AMPR, the vehicles that you use? There must, you must get the inside information of the vehicles that are coming around into our North Warwickshire.
Yeah, so moving forward, that's going to be something I wish to garner, if you like. Sort of early on, if you like, in my career, I'm sort of at the beginning of those different authorities you saw on the screen there. I've emailed all the different environmental health teams, and I'm waiting for some of them have responded with a view to saying hello, meeting them face to face and having a conversation to build up that network, and multi-agency, not just local authorities, the EA, local, the police. So just build a big network up of.
So if you caught someone in the act,
Yeah.
what power have we got? Do we have to involve the police there and then? Or can we, make a citizen's arrest or whatever?
Well, we can do,
kicked him to get back in the car when that. My husband went mad at me, so I wouldn't record it. But,
Yeah, I'm going to follow your lead. Excellent. It would have to be quite a dynamic assessment. If it was somebody, you talked about two different fly tippers in so much. If it was an organised crime gang, then they're not going to stop and speak to me. So I would be in a position of evidence gathering as much as I could. So the phone would come out, be recording them, I'd be recording the registration, and no doubt ducking out the way of the moving vehicle. So that's how I would imagine that scenario playing out, and obviously a phone call to the police there and then. But in terms of speaking to somebody who thought they could dump something from the shed, I'm sure they're more likely, and I've got powers to secure their name and address because they've committed a crime in front of me under the Environmental Protection Act, so I can do that. Basic powers in gaining evidence from them.
Yeah, I think we you told me earlier that you can interview under caution as well.
Yeah, very much the same
Yeah.
under the PACE guidelines like the police would, yeah.
Thank you. Anything from anyone else? I'll repeat, thank you very much, Andy, and we're very welcome into our
Yeah,
team.
good report. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
So we're just asked to note this report, so I don't think I need a vote. I'm looking over there. Do I need a vote for noting? No, but unless anybody's saying don't note, we've noted. Okay, thank you. Brilliant. So we move on then to the next one, which is the North Warwickshire Green Space and Playing Field Strategies Progress Report. Where are we on this? So I don't know, Becky, do you want to do some sort of introduction on this?
It's just a report to note really on some of the progress that we've made on some of the green spaces. I think we've been quite fortunate recently to have funding for a lot of access improvements. So we've managed to put some K barriers in, improvement in paths, we've got the normal play area, improvements in skate parks. So it's just a report to note really on some of that work.
Okay, there shouldn't be any surprises in this report because we've talked before about where the actions are going to be. I would just like to say though, on the playing pictures, as in football pitches, I've asked for a conditions report on the pitches themselves, but more importantly on the changing facilities, because for some teams in certain leagues, they can't play on our football pitches unless they have changing facilities, and I know that we've got some issues there. So that's being looked at the moment. The end of that process will be an action plan and hopefully some ideas of sort of the funding, because that's always an issue, but you know, we'll get over that when we get that far. And so that we can make sure that we've got the facilities that are needed in the borough. So Denise, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to Kath and Mike Dix again. They picked up the three actions.
Thanks.
So I don't know any of this. They picked up the three actions, and one of those was the pavilion at Ridge Lane, because I have had queries about that. And the other one is Manchester. Back in April, there was a survey done on the play pavilion in Manchester. I was told it came out not too bad. I've not seen any paperwork from that. But then back in June, there was a meeting, I believe, with one of our staff and the football club that really wants to take over the pavilion in Manchester. And I'm just asking if I could have an update on that, please, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Who can do that? Or Mike?
Mike can do that.
So I've actually been out with Steph to look at all the buildings and change rooms, so I'm familiar with them now, and some of them are in a poor state of repair. The fabric of the building, as I understand it, is actually in good repair. It's the internals that need refurbishing, and we do have a club which is interested on taking on that site, but obviously we need to support them and enable them to take it on in a condition which is fit for them to play. So that's something we're looking at. More generally, as the chair has said, we're preparing a strategy, if you like, and an action plan in terms of all the sites that we have, to look at those in terms of what's required and the need, and match those together, and then work with clubs and interested parties to try and prepare an action plan which will identify source of funding and ultimately come back to here for your consideration in terms of your priorities. And Manchester forms part of that, as does Ridge Lane.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie, and then Michaela.
Thank you, Chair. This is just a follow-on question, really, Mark, on this subject. Margaret and I have been in touch with a local football team who can't use the adult 11 at Snow Hill Recreation Ground because it's full. I'm sure you might have heard about this. However, they can play from Ridge Lane, but as Margaret said, the changing rooms have been the condemned or whatever is the issue with them. I understand that we're going to get them looked at, their condition looked at. I know it then goes on to funding. Is there any possibility that the team can fund it themselves, or does it have to come from the council?
No, the team can fund it themselves through Football Foundation and other sources of funding, and that's exactly what's happening in some of the other cases. So we work actively with them, and Becky's team does that with those clubs to support them to try and draw down that funding on our sites. And ultimately what happens is that they would end up with a lease for the site, which is what we're doing in other areas, So that they become, if you like, the owner, although we retain the freehold of the land, but they obviously have some significant interest in the property itself. So yes, that's part of the plan, is to build up the business case for each of those sites and identify clubs and teams that will be interested on taking them on.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Michaela?
In Answer Common, we haven't actually got a pitch, and I was told before that, or we was told that you was looking at identifying new places to have football pitches, like marked out and things. Is Answer Common on the list? Do you know? Or and also we have been having teams come and play, but I don't know who's allowed that, or they're just coming and using the field. But I say there is some damage being made by the team, so just what? I don't want to. I don't like moaning because I do like seeing them having fun, but I do want a pitch.
Through you, Chair, it is unusual for a team just to rock up and play because it's normally needs to be marked out and there needs to be goals and that kind of stuff. It's something that if there is a need, it'll be in the playing pitch strategy, so we can take that back and have another look. Because I know the Green Space strategy, we're going to get a report to this board in January, aren't we, Mark? And we can have a look at that. We'll take it back.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Andy?
Just a question about the virtual recreation ground. We have all the problems with that. Going back a while, me and Chris, what's his surname? Chris Jones, yeah, visited the site, and because we'd never seen that RAF method. I mean, I've seen the traditional RAF methods, but not that actual RAF method. And basically, I had my doubts about it, so did Chris, and obviously it's failed. Yeah. So I mean, what regards? I mean, the footing was only what 300 deep when it should be at least a metre. Yeah. So obviously that ground is soft. And obviously, there's movement on that gable end that's at least an inch wide. Yeah. So I mean, what I'm trying to say is, obviously, underpinning would have been the best method, the tried and traditional method. Yeah. But right. So, as the structural engineer or the contractor, if obviously because that failed, and if these healing bars, if they fail as well, is there any comeback for these? For them as contractors or as a structural engineer?
So I might pass on to Kath for the technical bit around the facilities bit, but we have had the contractor out last week with Chris to do the Helix solution. Yeah. So I think when the RAF was originally put in, it was never this is going to solve all of our problems. It was hoped that it would help. And my understanding, it did help, but obviously not enough. I mean, we're fortunate to have some Section 106 funding that we can use to finish that site off because it's a really good pitch. And we'd like the pavilion to match. I mean, it's disappointing that we are where we are with it, but hopefully with the solution that's now in place and we can get inside and finish it, we'll have a decent start.
It's just concerning with that ground that's being soft. It's only a 300mm footing. That I mean, I've been in that construction since the early 1980s, and like. You know, I've said before, as I said, the tried and trusted method is the underpinning, but we'll wait and see. But at the same time, obviously, as that's moving, you've got some real. I mean, obviously, those gaps are going to be filled, so they've got really crude filled in with mortar. Like I say, it all depends what else, what the other stresses as that moving, it's putting on the other part of the building as well, especially on the trusses.
Can I just supporting Andy on this? Basically, what we're saying is, who's advising us that this Helix solution will work, and are they liable if it doesn't work? Because this is the second attempt. Okay, thank you.
I'm afraid myself and Becky don't know the name of the company that Chris has been talking to, Chris Jones.
No.
But what I can do is we can go back and have a conversation with Chris, and then maybe if we can take that offline with you, and we can have a chat with you about that, and then Chris can explain it to you in more detail about what the solutions are. And I know you've suggested another solution as well. So, we want to be really clear that we want to take on board all of those points before we try and do this again, because whatever happens now, we need to get that right.
So me and Chris both agreed that the underpinning is a tried and tested solution. So it's old fashioned, but it works.
Okay, and that's noted, and we'll definitely take that back and have another look at that for you and come back to you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Anything else on this? Again, this is one for noting, so unless anybody's screaming at me, I was assuming that we've noted that. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the budgetary control report. Nigel, is there anything you want to say in introduction?
I think only to the point that we're looking, forecast outturn at the moment is looking at about 13,000 below the original budget. As detailed further in the report, there are plenty of ups and downs, in overall terms, there or thereabouts with the budget.
Thank you. It's good to be on the right side of the budget, at least at the moment, so we can rejoice. And I would like to point out to people that Coleshill Leisure Centre is performing better than predicted at the moment, which is a major, for those people who've been around for a while, that's a major achievement. And apparently it's because they got more people coming through the door and the income's gone up. So well done to all those people who are focused on Coleshill, because that has been a bit of an issue in the past. Well done. Questions, please. Anybody? Yes, we can.
Will that be down to the increased advertising?
Maybe.
Offering more like, cheaper prices and things like that.
Absolutely, could be part of it. Yeah,
I've
this is
seen
that
that they've been doing that. Bring a friend. Seen that.
Yeah.
Advertised.
Well, it seems to be working. Katie.
Thank you, Joe. I just wanted to ask you, if we're still doing the health MOTs at the sports centres, is that still going on? Because that's brilliant, isn't it? I love that. Okay, thank you. That's all I want to know. That's brilliant. I like that.
Thank you. Do you do them at all of the leisure centres?
Yes, Chair, all of them, they got some funding didn't they, through the health and wellbeing working party to get the scales. So yeah, they're across all of them.
Thank you. Any other questions from anyone? Major.
Yeah, community fund for local projects, got 0 in the budget, it was actually spent 23,000. Is that, we didn't have it in the budget then?
To you, Chair, yes, the budget is funded from earmark reserves, that's why it's at 0. And certainly the actual at the year end will also be funded through that same.
I know you accountants have a very strange way of working. However, it would still be good for us to know how much money is allocated to that against how much has been spent. So you may have to put it in a different line. I don't know what you do with it, but anyway, it would be good for us to know that. If you could find a way of reporting it, would be really good. Thank you. Any other questions from anywhere? Okay, another one for noting. Thank you very much, everyone. And then that brings us on to the really good work of our health and wellbeing working party. And I want to thank everybody who's on that committee because they work really hard on this. Now, Sandra's not here, who chairs it, but Bernadette is, and she's on the group and she's going to speak on it. Thank you.
Just one point to mention was the take up of vaccinations for us, and which I thought was really good, and that was a percentage of babies reaching 8 months. 94% of babies were fully vaccinated, up then to children of 18 months, 94%, and then children up to 5 years, 90%. There's a small amount that aren't being vaccinated still, but I think there's a work going on to try and get that sorted.
No.
Thank you. Just back to that, Bernadette. They would welcome our supporters counsellors, and we asked to do that if we could have some statistics for our local practices so that we could target it, didn't we? So that we could, know where our hotspots are and try and encourage a bit more uptake. So that would be useful. And I'm going to get back to us.
So that would be really good. It sounds from those overall statistics that we're actually booking the trend in Warwickshire, actually. But it's really important because that's over North Warwickshire rather than looking at individual areas where we might have some hotspots where children aren't being vaccinated at quite the same rate. So that would be
get them.
Sorry,
we will get the individual ones. That's
brilliant.
As a result.
Okay, if you could share that would be great. And just to look, this link between our leisure facilities and health and wellbeing, and there's a whole paragraph on there, and it's really important. That's why we do it. That's why we're anxious to get our leisure facilities up to scratch. And also, we've got captive audiences in there that we can help along the health way. So thank you. Katie.
Thank you, Chair. Just another one on health and wellbeing was the We Care UK statistics. They were shocking. I think everybody's seen the email that came out of the hotspot areas of where we've targeted for the emergency food parcels. And I know that Sally was going to make it clear that as councillors with a .gov email address, we can ask for the emergency food parcels. The numbers are terrible, considering these people are using local food banks or social supermarkets and are being referred elsewhere. But it's worth having a look in your ward on the hotspot map, because there was areas that we were told, last year that didn't need an emergency hardship fund, who have got a lot of residents using this. So keep an eye.
Just before I bring Emily in, so are the criteria for when and how you can refer people?
There is. It's all. We've got quite a detailed email from Sally.
Right.
And it's not as strict as some referrals. It's a really successful project because it delivers to the door as well, which obviously can put some people off from having to visit a food bank if they can't get there, or the timings. And the times are also variable. But Sally sent us an email, and it literally takes you step by step what you need to do if the situation arises. And we're on that. I've had a gentleman, as a result of posting this on Hartshill Residents Group, reach out to me asking for a food parcel. Who wasn't from a ward, he was actually from Nuneaton Town Centre. When I've looked into it, Nuneaton has got no emergency food provision. There was nothing that we could do in an emergency for this man on a Friday evening. Luckily, there's another local councillor in Bulkington who runs a food bank, and he had the supplies there and then ready to take to this man. But we're so lucky that we've got this emergency provision, and it is being utilised across all of our wards when we see the heat map. It's scary, but it was so insightful. It was just fantastic. Really, really, really good bit of information. And Sally is obviously brilliant as well if you've got any questions.
Well, did that email go to all councillors?
Yeah.
No, well, Becky's shaking her head.
I think it just went to the working party.
Oh, well, it sounds as if all councillors need to see that, plus the heat map that shows where the big issues are.
I think it was sent to all councillors.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
7th of October.
Oh, I must look mine up.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Just to add to Katie's comments there. So there's been a few referrals from Polesworth. And it was just to add really that the form is, it's not difficult, but it's detailed. And I think it might be worth when you take a referral that you explain to the person that there might be some questions that they need to answer in order to get that, because, it's not just as straightforward as what's your name and address, I'll pop you one round. It is, a bit more detailed than that. And I think that was a bit of a surprise to a couple of the councillors. So it was just to bring that up. And the other thing was, we did mention, although this is for sort of later news, we did mention in this meeting that in order to help with the request for different health clinics and support groups and so on, that we're going to try and see if we can link up with the community rooms. And we have got some work going on with Angela Coates' team to see what we can do about looking at maybe how we can support as councillors with opening up some of those rooms to help with this, because there is a bit of a barrier because we haven't got anywhere always to put these people into. So I think we need some way of triangulating that, and we will be looking into that. Whether that'll be a thing or not is something that we're going to work with. So that's what we will be doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I repeat, thank you so much to the people on this group. It really seems to have got a bit between its teeth, and it's doing all sorts of really good stuff. So thank you. Anybody else got any questions or comments on that? In that case, just after 7:30, I'll declare the meeting closed. So thank you very much. Yes, stay on that. Is it 30 minutes fees or something?